Well, I'm going to try to give you some help today on something that you might run into sometime, and that is what happens when you have a destroyed end on your synthetic line, and how can you make this as good as new. One of the important things is that your end becomes tapered. So you're going to have to cut this at a 45 and then go down 2 degrees, two of these, count down 2, and pull them out and cut them off. This end of the rope is going to have to be tapered like a tail. So this is what the tapered end looks like. There's been threads moved out all along here, 2 at a time, spreading out the strands. So as you can see, as it comes down, the reason I guess that's important, they say if you just have a tapered end, this will be where the rope breaks. If it doesn't, it'll put all the tension on one spot. So you need to have it so it grabs gradually all the way up the rope. And you see the rope gets fatter as you go up. That's what it looks like. At the end, I just took tape and wrapped it so that I have something that'll be able to start when I push it down inside the rest of the rope. This part, we just need to take this, we're going to go through and around. So, we're going to do a knot right here, and it's 8 inches per 6,000 pounds or something, so actually it's only 16 inches, but the reason I say you need 18 out to the end, and you can see I went 18 to the end of the taper, is because we're going to make 2 loops. The way you make the hole, you don't break any of the strands. You just want to get in there and slowly pry it apart and create a hole so that you can bring this tapered end through. And we're going to go through, and we're going to have another hole right here, and then it's going to go back into that hole and then down into the rest of the rope. So here you can see what it looks like. You come out and you're going to go through. You want this knot as close as you can to your loop. You don't want it necessarily, you want it to be able to pull that knot up to, but not put all the tension on the knot. So now we're going to put a hole here and then run it through and into the rope. So this is what it looks like, and now we're going to come out, and this is where you want to be careful. You want to be sure that when you come back in that it gets inside. You don't want it to be weaving in and out, or you don't want to break any of these strands. You want this whole thing, this whole piece here, to be stuffed entirely inside this rope and to taper out. Towards the end I'll be removing the tape as well once I get this thing going down in there. And then what you'll have is basically the rope will get slightly thicker right up near the knot, and it'll gradually taper out and be the regular width of the rope the rest of the way. Now this is what I'm using to spread my rope. I'm going to put this down inside, and then the rope will easily get wider as you spread it over the top of this. And I want to push all the way up this until I get all of my 18 inches of rope on here. So here you see this is going in, and just slowly pulling on it. You want to be sure that it's going straight down your line. And this will expand. You just keep bunching it up and moving it up to the fatter, part of the here. And then I'll show you a couple other things that work to keep this from bunching up, because eventually we have to take this. Now you can see this is going to be tucked inside of here. So once I got it on here, I bunch it all up. And I get it all bunched up like this because I'm going to tape it in place now to keep it from, when I pull this rod out, it's going to want to slip back into this position. So to keep it in this position, where I'm going to send a little solder wire up through the center and tie it onto the taper and pull it in. To keep this like this is the trick I use. I just take tape And I'm going to wrap tape around this to keep it in its expanded position. Otherwise, when I go to pull this rod out, it'll just pull it straight and the rope will look like this again. So this is what it looks like taped. So I start taping and I tape it up. Now, this is all bunched up tight together like I had showed you. And that kind of holds your form because what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to feed this little piece of soldering wire all the way up and then tape it to this so I have just something to tug it and keep it straight going down through. Otherwise, you're going to find this stuff is very fibrous and it's always going to try to grasp. Now, another thing you could do if you didn't want to pull it through like this is you could tape this to the end of a screwdriver or something that reaches up in there, up to this end, and pull it through that way. Now remember, this only looks like it's about 8 to 10 inches right now, but that's because it's all been spread out. This is the whole 16 inches now spread out on here. So when it goes in there, it's going to be cover that whole 16 inches. But right now this rope is expanded and pushed up. So now you can see the rope is tucked into the center, and this is still bunched up. It's not pulled tight, and this is going to be slid up into here as I pull it up. This other end, well, actually ends up being inside the rope all the way to the taper, so it tapers all the way out to a thin tail. I'm just taking the tape off that I put on that gave it its form, and then what I will do is I'll pull this rope and guide this in until this is all one piece. So you can see this end is a little fuzzy, and we're going to go ahead and fix that. But so as this rope receives tension, it tapers all together, and this will pull tighter and tighter until this will actually look more like just a little bit thicker rope. But right now, I've only put about 5 pounds of stress on it. But you can see the other rope is totally inside of this one. Now here at the end, there is a risk that you want to avoid, and you don't want this to back out. And so trying to avoid going directly through the knots, we're going to take a needle and some fishing line, and we're going to weave back and through a couple of these and tie it tight. Now that's just an extra added thing. It probably will never come loose, but it's just a way to keep it from ever backing out at the point where this goes in. You want this and this to stay tight. What I'm using is I'm just using a nail with a little bit of tape on it to hold the thread in place. So I want to be sure I don't puncture these strands. I want this thread to go around and through them. I'm going to go back and forth through here 3 or 4 times, and I just use this to be sure that I spread the strands so that I'm not punching through the middle of one. I just want that string to go through so that I can tie it, and it'll be a tight little grasp right there to keep it from backing out is all that's for. This the rope from backing out and getting a frayed knot here. That's all we're trying to do. Okay, so this is all sewn together now. The fishing line is back and forth through there a few times. Like I said, skipping so we don't break any of these. And it doesn't add any strength really. All that really is to keep this knot where remember it comes in one side, goes out and goes back into the other side. This just keeps this from backing out, this knot here, so it stays nice and intact. Now this will be, as soon as there's ever a solid load put on it, this will stretch real nicely and squeeze around this, and you have your rope back to a good strength. All right, well, I hope that helps you if you ever run into this problem.